Have you ever played a game and just thought, wow, how did they do that? What's the secret sauce that separates a good game from a truly great one? Well, it's not just a lucky guess or a killer idea. It's about methodically, systematically designing an experience. So let's dive in and open up the professional's toolkit for making fun happen on purpose.
Right, so every single game designer on the planet starts with this exact question. And it seems so simple, right? But the answer? It's anything but. We all want to make something that's fun, but the moment you try to pin down what fun actually is, it gets really, really tricky.
And here's why it's so tricky. Fun is just dangerously subjective. I mean, what you find absolutely thrilling, I might find kind of boring. What one player can't get enough of, another player might hate. So if you try to design for a vague idea like fun, it's like trying to build a house on top of fog. It just doesn't work. We need a much more solid foundation.
So how do we build that foundation? Well, the very first step is to stop designing for everyone and start designing for someone. Instead of just chasing this ghost called fun, let's get specific and ask, who are we actually making this for? And one of the oldest, most foundational tools for this is something called Bartle's Taxonomy. It's basically a way of classifying players based on what they truly love to do in a game.
This whole idea actually started way back in 1978 with one of the first ever multiplayer online games. The creator, Richard Bartle, he asked his most dedicated high-level players a really simple question. What do you want more of in this game? And you know what? They couldn't agree at all. In fact, they argued like crazy. And that's when he had his big realization. They were all playing the exact same game for completely different reasons.
So after studying his players, Bartle realized they basically fell into 4 distinct groups. You've got your achievers, right? They're driven by those in-game goals, getting the high score, maxing out their stats, collecting every single item. Then you have explorers. They play for the sheer joy of discovery, of finding every hidden secret and understanding how the world works. Socializers, they are there for the people, for the community, for chatting and building friendships. And then you have the killers. They play to win, and more specifically, to make other players lose. It's all about that sweet, sweet taste of dominance. And what's so beautiful about this is how cleanly it all maps out. Bartle organized these 4 types on a simple little graph. On one axis, you have players who like acting on things versus players who prefer interacting with them. On the other axis, you've got a focus on the game world versus a focus on other players. So, achievers act on the world to get points. Killers act on other players. Explorers interact with the world to learn about it. And socializers interact with other players to connect. It's a really powerful way for designers to see exactly who their next feature might appeal to.
Okay, so now we have a much better idea of who we're designing for. But how do we actually create that specific experience they're looking for? Let's grab the next tool from our kit, the MDA Framework. This is how we start deconstructing the player experience.
MDA stands for Mechanics, Dynamics, and Aesthetics. And it's really just a formal way of thinking about games that creates a bridge, a direct link between what the developer actually builds and what the player ultimately feels. It gives us a clear path from the rules of the game to that emotional punch.
So here's the magic of how it works. As a designer, you create the mechanics. That's the code, the rules, the systems. It's all the stuff under the hood. Now, when a player starts playing with those rules, they create dynamics. These are the strategies, the player behaviors, the unexpected gameplay that pops up. And those dynamics, in turn, create the aesthetics. That's the feeling. That's the emotional response. That's the fun. What's so crucial to get is that designers build from the bottom up, from mechanics to aesthetics, but the player experiences it from the top down. They feel the aesthetic first.
But see, just saying aesthetics isn't quite enough. To make this whole framework really useful, we need to get way more specific. We need a better vocabulary than just that one fuzzy word, fun. And that is where the 8 aesthetics of play come in.
You should think of these 8 aesthetics as a painter's palette, but for emotions. Instead of vaguely aiming for fun, a designer can aim for a very specific feeling, like challenge or fellowship. It gives us a super concrete target to aim for with our design.
All right, first up, we've got sensation. This is all about the game as a source of raw sensory pleasure. Think about the satisfying thump of a weapon hitting its mark, the rumble of a controller, or just the breathtaking beauty of a game world. It's that direct, visceral joy.
Next up, fantasy. This is the incredibly powerful appeal of make-believe. It's the sheer joy of stepping into a completely different role, in another world, and getting to be someone or something you're not. This is the ultimate form of escapism.
Then there's narrative. This aesthetic is all about the game as a piece of unfolding drama. It's a story that grabs you by the collar and just compels you to find out what happens next. It's the pure pleasure of being the main character in a really good plot.
Challenge. You know that feeling of just banging your head against a wall over and over, and then finally breaking through? That's challenge. It's the thrill of mastering a tough skill or overcoming a huge obstacle. It's that fist pump moment of pure victory.
And what about fellowship? This is the game as a social framework. It's the simple joy that comes from teamwork, from cooperation, from just being a part of a community with other real people. It's all about those shared experiences and building real bonds.
Discovery taps right into our natural curiosity. It's the absolute pleasure of exploring uncharted territory, of uncovering long-lost secrets and finding out what's just over that next hill. It is the thrill of the great unknown. Expression is all about leaving your personal mark on the world. This is the fun you get from showing off your own creativity and individuality. Think about building some incredible, sprawling castle in Minecraft, or customizing your character's look down to the last detail. That's expression.
And finally, we have submission. Now, this isn't about giving up. It's about the game as a relaxing pastime. It's that simple, almost meditative pleasure of doing a repetitive task, like tending to your farm in Stardew Valley or just grinding for loot. It's the joy of turning your brain off for a bit and just getting into the flow.
Okay, so now we've got the tools to understand our players, and we have a vocabulary to target specific emotional experiences. But there is one final, absolutely critical challenge. How in the world do you get an entire team, artists, programmers, writers, designers, to build the exact same game?
Well, the best way to think about it is with an analogy. If you want to build a house, you don't just describe it to the construction crew. You give them a detailed blueprint. In game development, our blueprint is the Game Design Document, or GDD. It is the single source of truth that clearly communicates the vision to every single person on the team, making sure you're all building the same house.
Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to this. A brilliant idea is literally worthless if it can't be executed. The game isn't that perfect vision you have in your head. It's the final, polished, interactive thing that a player actually holds in their hands.
So, with these tools in your belt, understanding your player, defining the exact feeling you're after, and clearly communicating that vision, you're not just crossing your fingers and hoping for fun anymore, you're actually engineering it. So the only real question left is, what kind of experience are you going to build?